Sam.
Josiah.
That's one of the ways we start every Sclusie. There's a few things. The episodes start with you saying the welcome thing, and sometimes I interrupt you. The Sclusies start with us saying each other's names. And I noticed, because you did one of your first interviews for a while, we both start the interviews with the word so. Did you notice that? You'll be like, so we're... Like, that's what I do, too.
Yeah, I and when I used to edit, the first, 2 episodes or whatever of this podcast, that and also when I used to edit myself, when we had, interview TV shows we were doing, the Exclaim one for YouTube and then some of the early stuff for Ox, I do it so habitually that sometimes halfway through an interview, or if you're doing a few in a day, I'll start to do it and then realize I've done it and then do this really uncomfortable pause knowing that I'm going to try to edit it. So I'll be like, and then I'll be like, and I'll stop and I'll be like, so... How's the tour going? And it's, I'm sure, a very great way to engage with another human
There's been
being.
a few times on here, too, I've done that exact same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't even bother editing it. You can just hear me, kind of paralyzed with confusion at the start of an interview on here because I don't know how to not say so. So. It's so good. But speaking of these things that we're speaking of, you still have a very popular YouTube channel. And whenever you mention, people go fucking hog wild for it. And they don't realize that I am now the keeper of your soul and I own you.
Yeah, well, I have more obligations to you, right? There's there's no one that I talk to every week who would give me shit for not doing a This Exists episode. So yeah, there's a dormant, but very culturally important YouTube channel with my login credentials out there.
I sometimes do think about if This Exists still was an active thing, how many of the things that you would have been talking about have been completely normalized into culture and how they're not even that quirky or fun anymore. It is definitely very hack to joke about furries at this point. That's not going to stop me from doing it, but it is hack. And similarly, the concept of ASMR, almost you have to be a baby boomer to still think that it's any semblance of funny. It's just it's just so accepted in normal culture at this point.
No, completely. And I was thinking about that when we were going to do this episode, because I feel like ASMR was one of those things that kind of towards the tail end of me doing consistent weekly episodes was, suggested by a bunch of people and was kind of on the list. And I was like, is this too known? And I'm not going to pretend that consistently the channel, and for people who have no idea what we're talking about, it is a YouTube channel that I started 5 or 6 years ago or 1,000 years ago. Then every episode was about sort of some quirky piece of online culture, and some of it was definitely not every episode is a gold standard. But for the most part, you're trying to do things that are far enough down the funnel to be interesting, but not completely, nihilistic and terrible, like everything at the actual bottom of the internet. And so ASMR was this thing that was seemed like such an obvious This Exists episode. And I was like, I feel like everyone already knows about it. And then a year later, there's a BuzzFeed show on Netflix about this quirky part of the internet, ASMR. And it's there's nothing, there's kind of, I think that era of interesting internet culture that was fun and quirky and not known by everyone and not just immediately washed by being over joked about on social media. I don't know that it's there anymore. It's either just the tip of the iceberg and then just heinous shit all the way down.
Yeah, it's kind of true. I mean, also it's just sort of similarly as you go deeper into these things, then you become more of a true head and know what's
right. That's
cool
part
and what
of it,
isn't.
right?
But then it's hard to explain things to normies who don't know anything. People who watch Tosh.0 probably still think ASMR is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, but I think you talked about the BuzzFeed, right? We were talking about this, right? The 50 worst things on the internet every year list.
Yeah.
And it's so first of all, I think there's a reason besides just geography that Internet Explorer, which was the podcast that Ryan Broderick and Katie Notopoulos did, that was sort of very, very they were mining very, very similar territory, really ripping me off, quite rude. And then, Katie Notopoulos refuses to do the podcast. But
yeah,
that was an era of really fun, stupid kind of internet culture. And then those lists were reflective of that. And I think that's also why the list is terrible now, right? There's just this flattening of all culture that sort of leaves the quirky nuance out of things a little bit. I don't know. I feel like I believe this, but I check me tomorrow.
Yeah. As soon as you show someone something cool, then you're kind of ruining it in a way.
Yeah, totally.
Also. So that's the other problem. But here's the thing. If you can't beat them, join them. So
right, is a bunch of intro to this episode.
There's a bunch of Blink-182 ASMR on YouTube that I want to talk about with you today. But rather than sort of joke about how funny and creepy it is, I thought it would be a better idea for us to actually do ASMR while we do it.
Yeah, which I didn't realize was going to happen until like 5 minutes ago. So that's great.
Right. So we're going to...
I'm going to explain this to Ashley.
If you go to patreon.com/Blink155 and listen to the rest of the episode right now, it's going to get a lot sexier and a lot more ASMR-y up in here. So this episode I've also decided when I thought of this a long time ago is called ASMR Things because it's the closest thing to a Blink-182 reference I can think of, and I'm doing this alone over here. So
yeah, you're not getting a lot of help. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're going to go behind the paywall now and we're going to speak in ASMR.
Okay.